practices have service entities. Service entity could be a company or a trust. So, and then doctors pay service fees to that particular entity. So, benefit of that is that the clinic owners can separate clinical income from the business overheads. And also there's tax efficiency as well, and the asset protection. But then the catch is SRO is a state revenue office is watching these structures. If these agreements are not arranged properly, then there could be payroll tax, back payments, penalties, and interest charges. Mm-hmm. What are the things that practice owners should look into or focus on when arranging these agreements, in your opinion?
I think one of the major things is to make sure that there is proper justification for the service entity, rather than, for instance, using the service entity simply to avoid, let's say, payroll tax. So if the service entity was actually servicing the practice across a whole bunch of areas, say equipment leases, all these sort of different things, then you'd have a stronger justification for using a service entity. And I don't recommend a service entity simply be used to avoid the employment, the payroll tax issue. So service entities are very popular. I think they've been around for forever. And I think you guys as accountants and financial advisors have recommended service entities from back in the 90s. They were quite popular as tax minimization vehicles and things like that. They still do really, really well overseas and here. So I think some companies have overseas service entities and things like that. So it could work really well, but it's important to structure it properly and have the necessary paperwork trail. Mm-hmm. In all of our dealings with regulators and the tax office, it's just very important to make sure your paperwork is up to scratch. So the agreements are in place, the contracts, all of the documents, the resolutions. If you're a company, you wouldn't believe how many times companies operate without resolutions. Yeah. And then these things help to not only justify the use of the service company, but also set up make sure the legalities are all looked into and followed and things like that. So assuming all of that is up to scratch, the service entity is a really good way to do things.
In terms of agreements, sometimes devil is in the clauses.
Yes.
So what kind of clauses are we supposed to look at or get reviewed by a professional? Particularly,
I think if a medical practice is looking to secure talent in order to generate an income, then again it's very important to make sure that the clauses in relation to how doctors come and work in a particular practice are looked at carefully. So, as you probably already know, but maybe some of our viewers don't, is the question of direction. So who is the doctor, the subject of the service agreement, taking direction from? Are they actually taking and as you know, the test, the more direction they take from you, the more they're classified as an employee rather than an independent contractor.
So the autonomy of the doctor or the independence of the doctor.
Yes, the autonomy level has to be relatively high. It's less an issue of how the payments are structured, and more an issue of the other tests, such as autonomy.
Yes.
And I think in medical practices, it's easier to have an autonomous doctor working there. It's not as complicated as some other professions or businesses where there needs to constantly be direction from management. Whereas in a medical practice, well, doctors are generally autonomous in respect of their dealings with patients, and they have a great degree of freedom to decide how they're going to deal with patients. And I think if you build on that basic autonomy, and you make the billing practices and the the payment practices relatively autonomous and free from that connection, you have the workings of a good service agreement.
So pretty much the service entities need to focus on providing facilities like utilities, consultancy rooms, reception, billing services to the independent doctors, rather than how the doctors should work in the practice.
Correct.
What's your take on it?
Absolutely correct. Look, I think a service entity, in order to be justified from a legal point of view, really needs to improve the efficiency of the practice.
Exactly.
Not simply exist as a way to kind of bypass, not purely as a tax minimization vehicle, for instance, which may or may not be perfectly legal, but I think for it to be better justified, it should actually improve some efficiency. It doesn't have to improve efficiency across the board, but it needs to justify its existence in that way. So if it could do that, then you have a really good working relationship between a service entity and the medical practice.
Yes. So the right structure saves you a lot of tax and money, and the wrong one can sink your practice.
Absolutely. And there's nothing more I can add to that statement. That is absolutely correct. If you get that wrong, you're going to be chased after by everyone, regulators, tax office, SRO. It's a problem across the board.
Yeah.